Mr. Damon was a reclusive billionaire known for his strict privacy. After a messy public breakup with a socialite, he had retreated to one of his secluded mansions to avoid attention. He barely interacted with the household staff, especially the new maid, a quiet young woman named Elna who kept to herself and always looked a bit out of place in the luxurious setting. Elna had been cleaning the guest room when she realized the water was still running in the guest bathroom. She assumed someone had forgotten to turn it off. With no one else around, she decided to quickly rinse off the sweat from cleaning all morning. She grabbed her towel and rushed in. She never imagined the door wasn't locked properly. Just as she stepped into the bathroom, Damon, distracted by a phone call and looking for a document left in the guest room, pushed the door open without knocking. What he saw made him freeze, Elna, half undressed, gasping in shock, clutching her towel to her chest. That moment changed everything. Damon quickly turned away, stammering an apology before shutting the door. His heart pounded, not from embarrassment, but from the image now burned in his mind. He had never really noticed her before, but in that accidental glimpse, he saw a softness, a beauty hidden beneath her plain clothes and quiet demeanor. Elna sat on the floor of the bathroom, mortified. She'd only taken the job to support her sick brother and never expected to work for someone so powerful, let alone be caught like that. She considered quitting, certain that he would fire her or, worse, mock her behind her back. But to her surprise, the next day Damon didn't fire her. In fact, he avoided eye contact and spoke in an unusually soft tone. Something in his gaze had shifted, and Elna couldn't figure out whether it was curiosity, guilt, or something else entirely. Damon found himself watching Elna from a distance, fascinated. She wasn't like the glamorous women he was used to. There was no makeup, no perfume, no games. She moved quietly, cleaned thoroughly, and never looked him in the eye. But now, he wanted her to. Elna, on the other hand, became increasingly uncomfortable. Not because Damon was inappropriate, he wasn't, but because she could feel his attention. It lingered in the air whenever she entered a room. It made her anxious, unsure if it was danger or desire. Then came the moment that confirmed it. As she scrubbed the kitchen floor late at night, she looked up and caught Damon standing silently by the door, staring. Not at her hands. Not at the floor. But at her. "You should be sleeping," Damon said, stepping closer. "Why are you still working?" His voice was low, almost gentle. Elna stood up quickly, wiping her hands. "I wanted to finish before morning. I'm sorry if I disturbed you." She kept her eyes lowered, but she could feel his gaze all over her. It was both terrifying and thrilling. "I disturbed you yesterday," he said suddenly. "And I've been thinking about it more than I should." Elna's heart skipped. She didn't know how to respond. His honesty wasn't expected. But it didn't stop there. "You're different," he continued. "You hide it, but I see it now. You're not just a maid, are you?" That question made Elna stiffen. She had a secret, and she prayed he wouldn't find it out. Damon started changing. The once cold and distant billionaire began showing up in the kitchen when Elna was there, asking casual questions, offering her tea, even attempting small talk. The other staff noticed but said nothing. They feared his wrath too much. Elna felt trapped. Damon was no longer just her boss, he was becoming something she didn't understand. She kept her responses short, but her mind was always racing. Why her? Why now? What did he really want? One night, while clearing the library, she accidentally knocked over a crystal vase. As it shattered, she panicked, expecting anger. But instead, Damon rushed in, took her hands in his, and said, "It's just glass. Are you okay?" That moment made her knees weak. Rumors began to stir among the staff. Elna was suddenly eating meals Damon requested, assigned lighter duties, and spotted speaking with him too often. Jealousy brewed, especially from Marcy, the senior housekeeper, who had her own dreams of being more than staff. One morning, Elna found her room ransacked. Her journal was open on the bed, and some of her clothes were missing. She knew it wasn't a robbery, it was a warning. Someone wanted her gone. Shaken, she considered leaving, but someone, kept her rooted. That night, Damon knocked on her door. She opened it slowly, eyes red. "Someone went through my things," she whispered. Damon's face darkened. "No one touches you again," he said. "Not in my house." She looked at him, and for the first time, didn't look away. Damon started giving Elna more personal tasks, managing his wardrobe, organizing his private study, even bringing him coffee in the mornings. These were things reserved for trusted assistants, not maids. But with every moment alone, the tension grew. One day, while helping him tie a cufflink, her fingers brushed his skin. They both paused. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. The silence said everything. But just as Damon leaned slightly forward, Elna pulled away and left the room in a rush. She didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, but because of confusion. She liked him. She wanted him. But she wasn't supposed to. And worse, she knew that if he ever found out the truth about who she really was, this fragile connection would be destroyed. Elna's past was something she buried deep. Born into privilege, she had chosen to disappear after her father's scandal ruined the family name. She'd lived in shelters, done odd jobs, and eventually took the maid role just to survive. No one in the mansion knew. Except now, she feared Damon might guess. He was smart. He asked too many questions. And when he invited her to a private dinner as a thank you for everything, she knew this was more than kindness. It was interest. She tried to decline. "I'm your maid, sir," she said. He responded with one line, "Not in that dress." And when she saw the silk gown laid out for her on her bed that night, she realized the game had changed. The dinner was unlike anything she'd experienced in months. Candles, soft jazz, and only 2 seats. Damon poured her wine, watched her every move. "You look extraordinary," he said. "I always wondered what was underneath all those uniforms." Elna laughed nervously. "Dirt and sweat, mostly." But he smiled and shook his head. "You have no idea, do you? How beautiful you are. How rare." She tried to stay grounded, to remember this was her boss. But when he reached across the table and took her hand, her heart betrayed her. She didn't pull back. And when he leaned forward, she didn't stop the kiss. The kiss was slow and unsure at first, like 2 people testing forbidden waters. But when it deepened, it felt like something years in the making. When they finally pulled away, Elna couldn't breathe. "This is a mistake," she whispered. But Damon shook his head. "No. What we've been doing until now, that was the mistake. Pretending we don't feel this." The next day, things were different. They didn't speak of the kiss, but their glances grew longer, their touches more lingering. Damon gave her a keycard to the private library and started calling her to his study late at night just to talk. And then, one evening, Marcy walked in on them, Damon and Elna standing too close in the hallway, their faces too soft. Her eyes narrowed. That was the beginning of the storm. Marcy wasted no time. She began whispering to the other staff, spinning stories about Elna seducing the boss, using her body to climb from mop to mansion. The house was no longer safe. Elna felt the stares, the muttered words, the subtle sabotage, missing supplies, locked doors, cold meals. Damon noticed the tension. "Is someone bothering you?" he asked, stepping into her cleaning space one afternoon. She hesitated. "They think I'm using you," she finally admitted. He didn't flinch. "Then let them. I don't care what they think." But Elna did. And that night, she told him they had to stop. "You're a billionaire." "I'm just the help," she said. "You don't owe me anything." Damon stepped forward and said something she never expected. "I don't owe you. I want you." That night, Elna couldn't sleep. She thought about the kiss, the words, the power Damon had, and how fragile her place in his world was. She still hadn't told him the truth about who she was. The shame, the scandal, she was sure it would end everything. Meanwhile, Damon began to question himself. Was he crossing a line? Was he chasing a fantasy? But every time he tried to ignore his feelings, he found himself reaching for her, watching for her shadow in the hallway, listening for her soft footsteps. Then came the unexpected twist. Damon's ex-fiancée showed up at the mansion unannounced, dressed in diamonds and dripping entitlement. "I heard you've developed a taste for the help," she smirked. Elna, hidden in the hallway, overheard every word. Damon dismissed his ex coldly, but the damage was done. Elna stayed away for days, doing only the basics, keeping to the shadows. Damon finally cornered her in the greenhouse one evening. "Don't disappear on me," he said quietly. "I don't belong in your world," she said, her voice shaking. "Your ex is right. I'm just a maid. I don't even have a proper past to offer you." But Damon reached for her chin, lifting her face. "You think I care where you came from? I care about who you are now." She turned away before he could kiss her. She wanted to believe him, but the past doesn't stay buried forever. That weekend, a mysterious letter arrived for Elna. It had no return address, just her full name, her real name, on the envelope. Inside was a photo of her with her father years ago, and a note, "You can't run from your blood." Elna's hands trembled. Someone knew. Someone from her past had found her. She burned the letter, but the fear remained. If Damon found out she was the daughter of a disgraced tycoon, would he still want her? But that same night, as she stood alone in the hallway, Damon approached her from behind. "You're hiding something," he said softly. "And I'll wait until you're ready to tell me." That kind of patience made her heart ache. Damon started distancing himself, not out of anger, but to give her space. He didn't want to smother her, but the house felt colder without their secret smiles and whispered words. Elna missed him more than she expected. Meanwhile, Marcy wasn't done. She found old records, a news clipping with Elna's family name buried deep online. She printed it and left it on Damon's desk anonymously, hoping it would turn him against Elna once and for all. When Damon read it, he sat still for hours. The photo of Elna as a teenager beside her father, the disgraced businessman, stared back at him. Instead of anger, he felt sorrow. She had run so far from a broken past, and never once used it for gain. Damon summoned Elna to the rooftop garden. She came nervously, unsure of what he'd say. He handed her the clipping. "Is it true?" he asked. Her eyes welled up. She nodded. "That's why I work here. I couldn't face the world anymore." He took a deep breath, stepped closer, and placed a hand on her cheek. "I don't care where you came from. You didn't choose your father's sins. I care about who you are now, and who I'm falling for." She sobbed then, not out of sadness, but out of relief. For the first time, someone had seen her scars and still chosen her. That night, she kissed him again. Not out of confusion, but out of certainty. From that point on, they were no longer hiding. Damon began openly speaking with her at dinner, offering her choices, walking with her around the property. The staff gossiped louder now, but Damon didn't care. He had made his choice. One morning, Damon invited her to sit beside him while he went through papers. She accidentally spilled coffee on his shirt. "I'll get a cloth," she panicked. He pulled her back gently. "Don't. Stay." They stayed like that for hours, neither speaking. It was peace, the kind she had never known. But peace rarely lasts in stories like this, because jealousy, especially from someone like Marcy, doesn't go quietly. Marcy was fired the next day. Damon had finally discovered her sabotage. Footage from hidden security cameras showed her tampering with Elna's things. She was escorted out in silence, but her glare lingered like poison in the air. Elna felt guilty. "I didn't want anyone to lose their job because of me," she told Damon. But he responded simply, "She tried to destroy what matters to me. I won't tolerate that." His words made her heart race again. Now alone in the mansion without Marcy's looming shadow, Elna and Damon grew even closer. They began having quiet breakfasts together, long walks after sunset, and even falling asleep on the couch watching old movies. Elna didn't realize it at first, but her laugh returned. Her shoulders no longer hunched. She felt seen. Damon made space for her in his world, but more importantly, he made space for her in his heart. Then came the invitation. "I want you to come with me," he said one morning. "There's a private villa by the ocean. Just us. No staff. No whispers. Just peace." Elna hesitated. What would people say? He smiled. "Let them say anything. I'll only be listening to you." She finally agreed. And that weekend, they left in his private car, destination, the unknown. The villa was breathtaking, white sands, turquoise water, and silence. They spent the first day just walking barefoot along the beach, no titles, no roles, no walls. Damon cooked dinner that night, burning it badly, and they laughed like children. That night, as they sat watching the stars, Damon turned to her. "You changed me, Elna. You reminded me what it means to feel again." Her eyes sparkled in the moonlight. "And you made me believe I could be something more than my past." Then, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, not a ring, but a necklace with a tiny key. "This is the key to the study where I keep everything that matters. And now, that includes you." Back from the villa, the house didn't feel the same anymore, it felt warmer. Damon had given Elna access not just to his study, but to parts of his life no one else had seen. She wore the key around her neck, tucked under her blouse, close to her heart. But with their bond growing stronger, Damon's circle began to raise questions. Business partners visited more frequently, and some whispered about his choices. One even dared to ask, "Is it true? You're living with the maid now?" Damon didn't answer. He simply walked away. Elna noticed the tension building around him. He tried to shield her, but she knew the world wouldn't be kind. She offered to leave. "If my presence affects your respect," but he stopped her mid-sentence. "Your presence gives me peace." Let them choke on their opinions. One morning, as Elna walked through the hallway, she paused at Damon's study. She used the key to enter, just to dust and organize. But what she found stunned her, an entire drawer filled with sketches of her. Pencil drawings of her reading, cleaning, laughing, even crying. Tears welled in her eyes. He had been watching her long before she realized he cared. Each drawing captured a different emotion, a moment where she had been too lost in her own thoughts to see someone was truly seeing her. Damon walked in quietly and found her there, holding one of the drawings. "You were my muse," he said softly. "Even before I admitted it to myself." Elna turned to him and said the words she had long feared but finally meant, "I love you." With love finally spoken, their world shifted again. Damon began including her in decisions, even helping him with small choices, like what painting to hang, what color to repaint the dining room. The mansion was no longer his alone. It was becoming theirs. But change comes with resistance. Damon's cousin, Victor, a schemer with too much pride and not enough heart, came storming in one day. "Are you seriously turning everything over to a maid? Do you know how ridiculous that sounds?" Elna tried to leave the room, but Damon held her hand tightly. "She's worth more than anyone who judges her by her job. And if you can't respect her, you can get out." Victor left, fuming, but not defeated. Trouble was brewing. Victor began planting doubts in the boardroom. Whispers of Damon losing focus, of Elna manipulating him. He gathered allies quietly, seeking to create a rift between Damon and his closest partners. Elna had no idea. Meanwhile, Damon was planning something special. He took her out to a quiet garden and, under fairy lights and falling petals, asked her to move in officially, not as the maid, but as the woman he loved. "Will you be with me fully?" he asked. Elna said yes. Not just with words, but with a promise. She would no longer run from her past. She would stand beside him, come what may. The mansion cheered that night, unaware of the storm Victor was preparing. Victor struck during a major board meeting. With fake emails, altered figures, and misrepresented data, he accused Elna of meddling in company affairs, claiming she was trying to influence Damon's decisions for personal gain. Elna was crushed. Damon defended her fiercely, but the board demanded answers. Elna offered to walk away just to protect Damon's legacy. "I don't want to be the reason they destroy what you've built," she whispered. But Damon stood before everyone and said, "If they force me to choose between a company and the woman who healed me, I choose her." The room went silent. Lines were drawn. Loyalty was tested. And Elna realized this love was real. The fallout was immediate. Damon stepped back from the company temporarily, handing over control to a trusted friend. Victor was exposed shortly after, his lies caught on a hidden recorder Damon had installed weeks ago. Victor was publicly humiliated and removed. The company stabilized. Damon returned days later to a standing ovation, but he didn't smile until he was home, where Elna waited, arms wide, heart open. That night, they celebrated with music and dancing in the kitchen, wearing pajamas, laughing until they cried. "You saved me," Damon whispered. "No," Elna replied, "we saved each other." With their bond stronger than ever, Damon surprised Elna with something unthinkable. He handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a deed, her name on a charming property, a home of her own. "It's yours," he said. "You'll always have a place to call yours." Elna was speechless. "Why?" she asked. "Because I want you to always feel safe. No matter what happens." It wasn't about money. It was about love that gave, without expecting anything in return. They spent weekends there together, planting flowers, painting walls, dreaming of a life beyond titles and tabloids. It was theirs. No maids. No billionaires. Just two souls building something beautiful. Damon began learning her world, just as she had learned his. He washed dishes, swept floors at the new place, and even took her old mop to relive how it all started, he joked. They laughed more, fought less, and grew closer in ways neither expected. Then one morning, Elna handed him a tiny box. "I have something for you." Inside was a small silver pin engraved with the word beginning. "Because you were my new beginning," she said. He wore it proudly on his lapel. Rumors no longer touched them. Gossip no longer mattered. They had rewritten the story. She was no longer just the maid, and he was no longer just the billionaire. They were each other's beginning. Life settled into joy. Damon invited Elna to speak at a private dinner, not about her past, but about finding hope in unexpected places. She told the story of the night he walked in on her heading to shower, and the silence that changed everything. People listened, moved not by scandal, but by sincerity. For the first time, her story wasn't one of shame, but one of rising. She saw heads nod, eyes glisten, hearts soften. Afterward, Damon stood beside her and said proudly, "This is the woman I love. She changed my world." And the applause wasn't for wealth or status, but for truth, and for love that survived the fire. On the anniversary of the day they first met, Damon did one last unexpected thing. He brought Elna back to the same hallway where it all began, where he had first walked in on her going to shower. There, surrounded by candlelight and flower petals, he got down on one knee. That day, everything changed. "And every day since, I've loved you more. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face. "Yes," she whispered, without hesitation. The mansion, once filled with whispers and judgment, now echoed with laughter, music, and promises. The maid and the billionaire were no longer roles in a scandal, they were partners in a love story the world never saw coming. And it all started with one unexpected moment, by the bathroom door. The wedding was simple, intimate, and magical. Elna didn't wear diamonds or silk, she wore a cream dress she designed herself, with lace stitched by the hands that once scrubbed floors. Damon wore a navy suit, the same one from the first board meeting where he defended her. It was their way of honoring the journey. The mansion's garden was transformed into a glowing wonderland. Staff, once her co-workers, now celebrated her as family. There was laughter, dancing, and even a surprise speech from the old cook, who cried, saying, "She always cleaned with care, and now she's the queen of this house." When Damon kissed her under the moonlight, there was no press, no noise, no judgment. Just two souls, finally home. From that night forward, the house that once echoed with silence now danced with laughter, love, and belonging. A year later, Damon walked into the kitchen and found Elna barefoot, singing while making breakfast. She turned and held up a tiny onesie. "I was going to surprise you later," she smiled. "But I guess now is as good a time as any." Damon froze, then ran to her, lifting her into the air with joy. They laughed and cried in the same kitchen where they first shared breakfast and burnt toast. Everything had come full circle. And just like that, their story took a new turn. From a mistaken hallway encounter to marriage, now parenthood. The maid had become the heart of the home, and the billionaire, the one who found wealth and love, not numbers. And together, they were proof that sometimes, fate doesn't knock, it walks in by accident.